A major break in a decades-old cold case out of Livingston County. 19-year-old Christina Castiglione went missing back in March of 1983.
Can you imagine losing a loved one to murder and then being left with no answers? It's distressing to think even about the agony of not getting justice for years, let alone going through it. When 19-year-old Christina Castiglione disappeared on the snowy night of March 19, 1983, her grief-stricken family was left to deal with this unimaginable situation. 8 days after Christina's disappearance, she was found murdered in a remote wooded area not far from her home. For the next 40 years, the murder remained a mystery. Who was responsible for her death? And why did the murder take 4 decades to solve? Hi, and welcome back to Mysterious 7. Today we delve into a 40-year-old cold case that was finally solved in 2023. But before we begin, about 92% of you are not subscribed to the channel. Please consider subscribing. It motivates us to create more enthralling content for you. Let's dive in without any further ado. Located in the southeastern part of the state of Michigan, Livingston is a beautiful county that covers an area of 585 square miles. Home to approximately 191,000 people, according to the 2020 census, this county is a growing community with a mix of urban and rural areas. Apart from its diverse economy and culture, Livingston County is known for its natural beauty and offers amazing outdoor activities, including hiking, camping, and fishing. This seemingly bucolic setting is where today's story takes place. Christina Lynn Castiglione was born on March 8, 1964, to parents Cristoforo and Beatrice Castiglione. Alongside her elder sister Anna, Christina grew up in a happy home in Redford, Michigan, located in Livingston County. She graduated from Redford Union High School, where she was very involved in sports, including basketball and volleyball. Despite her athletic talent, she wasn't exceptionally outgoing and mostly kept to herself. She was known to be a person interested more in repairing her car than joining in social gatherings. However, everyone agreed that she was a genuine and nice person. Though she wasn't one to express much about her hopes and aspirations, she had a lot on her bucket list. By 1983, at age 19, Christina seemed to be living life to the fullest. She was in a steady relationship with her 25-year-old boyfriend named Christopher Lindsay. In early 1983, Christina took up a job at the Detroit Edison Company as a research clerk. Although she loved this job, she considered joining the Army and traveling far from home. Eventually, she approached an Army recruiter and decided to sign up. She was looking forward to a future she would, unfortunately, never see. March 19, 1983 was a Saturday, and Christina's day off from her clerical job. Early on that bitterly cold morning, Christina went out to run some errands for her mother, joined by Christopher. The couple parted ways around noon, with plans to meet later that evening for a date night. Christina returned to her parents' home around 2 p.m. on MacArthur Road and took a nap. As the sun set on Redford and snowflakes were gently falling over the town, Christina was excited to go out with her boyfriend on a scheduled date. However, when she didn't hear from him by 7:30 p.m., she became antsy and decided to go look for him. Just the week prior, Christina had sold her red Mustang because she was unable to afford the insurance cost. So she set off on foot, despite the bad weather. Christina first checked Christopher's sister's place, across the street from her own, but he wasn't there. She then went to a friend's house a mile away, hoping to find Christopher there, but to no avail. After watching television with her friend for some time, Christina decided to walk back home. Sadly, she never made it. Her parents grew worried when they didn't hear from her the following day. However, they figured that she was probably busy enjoying her Sunday. It was around noon on March 21, 1983, when Christina's mother, Beatrice, reported her missing to the Redford Police Department after they couldn't get a hold of her. At about 7 p.m. that day, Redford police received several reports of sightings of a partially nude woman being pushed inside a vehicle nearby in Inkster. Believing that the description of the abducted woman matched 19-year-old Christina, officers from Redford Police Department began searching for her in that area. The search for Christina extended for several days, but remained fruitless. Meanwhile, officers began interviewing those close to the young woman. First on their list was Christina's boyfriend, Christopher. And Christopher had quite a story to tell. Christopher stated that on that fateful evening, he was supposed to meet his girlfriend, but he was delayed due to a party he'd attended earlier in the evening. At around 8 p.m., he and two of his friends were driving back from the party. He claimed that he saw Christina standing on the 5-mile roadside near Lola Park, across from Kingsborough Party Store in Redford Township. A party store is a locally used term for a corner store or liquor store in Michigan. As it started to drizzle, she was bundled in a burgundy ski jacket, with the hood of her gray sweatshirt underneath pulled up. Strangely, Christopher did not ask his friend to stop and pick her up. He explained that Christina disapproved of the two friends he was with, and he didn't want to upset her. Instead, he got out of his friend's car at a store a mile down the road. While his friends went inside the store to buy beers, he waited to see if Christina would walk past the store. When she didn't, Christopher said he walked back to the road to the last liquor store to look for her, but there was no trace of her. Worried for her safety, he called her home several times, but no one picked up. However, he did not call her parents, as he didn't want to worry them. This story set off alarm bells for the investigators. Now they were almost sure that something terrible happened to Christina, and they were desperate to find her. As the search around the wooded area in Redford continued, police also distributed photographs of the missing girl and interviewed several people in an attempt to gather information. There were several tips that were called in, but none were fruitful. Along with their conventional search efforts, Redford police also went for a different approach. They'd enlisted the help of a local self-proclaimed psychic, Penny Mraz, who suggested to police that Christina's body could be found in a dumpster in Inkster. For the next few days, police searched the dumpster and trash containers all around the town, but came up empty-handed. Redford police were heavily criticized for this approach, but then Detective John Crete said they were willing to go to any extent that might aid in their investigation or help find the missing girl, no matter how ridiculous it seemed at the time. On March 29, 1983, 10 days after Christina Castiglione disappeared in the dark, the Redford police received an alarming call. The man told the detectives that he'd stumbled upon human remains while deer hunting in the Oak Grove State Game Area at the corner of Fawcett and Fisher Roads in Livingston County's Deerfield Township. When homicide detectives arrived at the scene, they noticed that the partially clothed body was lying in a remote wooded area on the side of the road, and evidence suggested that it had been placed in the wooded area before the snow started falling. From the clothes, detectives were able to identify the body as Christina Castiglione. The body was partially covered by several inches of snow in a clump of trees, which was not unusual, considering there was a heavy snowstorm on the day Christina was reported missing. However, by this time, the snow had started to melt, eventually exposing her body. Officers sealed off the area, and Christina's body was taken to the coroner's office for an autopsy. Curiously, while Livingston County was not known for serious crimes, there had recently been a rash of corpses disposed of in this area. Between 1978 to 1983, 10 bodies were found on the state-owned barren land of this county. In nearly all of these cases, the victims were murdered elsewhere, and their bodies had been discarded in the county. These strange circumstances gave birth to the theory of a serial killer being responsible for these crimes. Amidst all the speculation, one thing was certain: Christina had been a victim of a heinous crime. The autopsy uncovered evidence that showed Christina had been sexually assaulted before she was strangled to death. The medical examiner discovered unknown male DNA on her body. Although DNA technology was still in its infancy, the evidence was preserved for future testing. Unfortunately, it could not provide detectives with any clear direction in which to steer their investigation at that time. However, detectives remained diligent in their duties. In the months following the murder, they ran down several leads. They checked out approximately 80 tips from anonymous callers and interviewed at least 20 suspects. Unfortunately, nothing was gleaned as a result of their efforts. They even questioned some of the known sex offenders in the area, but in the end, they were all cleared. Intriguingly, investigators found a striking similarity to the 1981 unsolved murder of 16-year-old Kimberly Louiselle. In late March of that year, Kimberly went missing while hitchhiking in Livonia. She was found dead 3 weeks later on state-owned land in Livingston County in the same area as Christina. Also similar to Christina, Kimberly was also assaulted and strangled to death. Despite believing the two murders were committed by the same person, nothing definitive had been uncovered. Sadly, to this day, Kimberly's murder remains unsolved. Eventually, the leads began to dry up and detectives had exhausted all avenues in Christina's murder case. Although Livingston County was still haunted by the possibility that a murderer was roaming free amongst them, with time, the case faded away from the headlines. Christina's family never lost hope, though. It was in 2000, with the rise of DNA technology, that detectives were able to develop a male DNA profile and entered it into the National DNA Database for Criminal Justice, otherwise known as CODIS, but did not find a match. The case turned cold once again. It would take investigators 2 more decades to get a breakthrough in this puzzling case. In 2022, the Livingston County Sheriff's Office cold case team began looking at the case, along with a team comprised of FBI retiree Bob Getchman, retired Mackinac Island Police Chief Bill Lenahan, retired Livingston County Detective Edwin Moore, and Detective Lieutenant Jim Lynch. In March of that year, the office applied for funding to conduct advanced DNA testing on the suspect DNA samples taken in 1983 through Season of Justice. Season of Justice is a non-profit organization dedicated to funding DNA testing on unsolved cold cases. They provide funding to law enforcement agencies nationwide to conduct advanced testing in multiple crimes, including homicide, sexual assault, and cases where the victim's body or the suspect is unidentified and DNA is the only investigative option. After granting permission and funding from the Season of Justice, the DNA samples were sent to Othram Inc., a private forensic laboratory in Texas known for bringing conclusions in numerous cold cases. Othram scientists used forensic-grade genome sequencing to create a comprehensive genealogical profile from the unknown suspect's DNA. From there, with the help of genealogical databases and family tree websites, the investigation landed on a suspect. Confirmed by 3 separate family DNA comparison tests, the suspect was finally identified as Charles David Shaw in 2023, 40 years after the senseless murder. Unfortunately, not much is known about Shaw's early life. However, based on information obtained from Shaw's family, authorities revealed that for most of his life, he struggled with mental illness, sex addiction, and gender identity. His ex-wife, who cooperated with investigators, stated that Shaw wanted to undergo a sex change procedure. Surprisingly, Shaw wasn't exactly off the radar of law enforcement. Rather, he had multiple run-ins with the law from a young age. In 1973, he was arrested by the Livonia Police Department for burglary. In 1977, he was arrested by the LPD for drug possession. Then, in 1981, he was arrested and sentenced to 2 weeks in jail and probation for the attempted kidnapping of a woman in the Fowlerville McDonald's parking lot. In 1982, he was again arrested for stealing women's shoes at a Kmart. However, even with his shady past, his family couldn't believe that he was capable of brutally killing someone. Detectives discovered that Shaw was a longtime Livonia resident who lived less than 5 miles from where Christina went missing. However, they were unable to find any direct ties between Christina and Charles to suggest why she was targeted. In yet another bizarre twist, Charles Shaw died in November of 1983 as a result of accidental sexual asphyxiation. Unfortunately, he will never be able to face justice for Christina's murder. The curtains are now closed in this 40-year-old cold case. The outcome is bittersweet for Christina's family. Sadly, both of Christina's parents went to their graves not knowing who was responsible for their tragic loss. We can only hope that her surviving family members find solace in knowing the truth. At a press conference held in February 2023, Livingston County Sheriff Mike Murphy thanked the Shaw family for their cooperation during the investigation, which was paramount in identifying Charles Shaw as the person responsible for Christina's death. Authorities are now looking deeper at other cold cases, as they believe that Charles Shaw could have been responsible for more than one death. While we don't wish to speculate on whether or not Charles Shaw preyed on other victims, we would love to hear your thoughts on the matter in the comment section below. Please don't forget to like, share, and subscribe for more intriguing stories like this. Until next time, stay safe